Hey, what's going on everyone, it's me Jordan and welcome to another video, and today we'll be talking about the Battle of Passchendaele. We all know that the first DLC for Battlefield 1 comes out in March this year, and it will be focusing mainly on the Battle of Verdun. And my first educated guess for this is how the premium is going to play out, is that each DLC is going to be based on a famous battle during the First World War. And I thought I'd talk about one of those battles, which is the Battle of Passchendaele. Not saying that this will be a future DLC, but if it's going to play out this way, then it could very much be possible. The Battle of Passchendaele is known as to be one of the most bloodiest and muddiest battles during the First World War. It's also officially known as the Third Battle of Ypres. The Battle of Passchendaele lasted from the 31st of July to the 6th of November in 1917. The soldiers who fought in it kindly refer to it as the Battle of the Mud. By the end of it, the Allied side had only gained around 5 miles of ground in the 3 months of fighting. The campaign was launched by the Allied troops who were trying to fight for control over the ridges of the south and east of the Belgian city of Ypres in West Flanders. It was a decision taken by the Allied forces in November 1916 all the way up to May 1917. The man who commanded the British Expeditionary Force was Sir Douglas Haig. He had been commanding them from 1915 all the way up to the end of the war. The attack of Passchendaele was his attempt to break through Flanders after the devastating amount of loss that they had suffered from the Battle of the Somme, which was the year before that. Passchendaele was located around 5 miles east of Ypres. The Germans had a controlled railway where it was thought at the time where the majority of their supplies that they had for the Western Front were being held there. The Allied side were attempting to push through and capture the area. Now, this campaign was very controversial. Public figures such as the Prime Minister David Lloyd George was opposed to the offence, as was General Ferdinand Foch, who was the French Chief and General Staff for the French Army. So Douglas Haig had a comment on this, and he believed it was the wisdom of pursuing an offensive strategy. Allied forces had been trying to persuade the Americans to join. The Americans held firm, however, because they felt like there was no natural need for them to enter the war and had nothing to gain from it. He felt if they waited, the German defences would have only got stronger. Now, the first Battle of Passchendaele on the 12th of October was another Allied attempt to gain control all around Passchendaele. The heavy rain and mud really slowed down the movement and made it really hard for artillery to be placed and shot over. Now, after the first battle, the Allied forces had made a really good progress. However, the Germans had done multiple counterattacks, which ultimately pushed the Allied forces back. After that first battle, 13,000 Allied troops had been killed. The next day, Sir Douglas Haig and his war commanders found out that 13,000 of those casualties was 2,700 New Zealanders, which makes that day go down as the worst day in New Zealand history, the largest loss of life for New Zealand in a single day. After hearing this horrible news, Haig and the army commanders agreed that the attacks would be halted until the weather improved and the roads could be extended. The Canadian forces were planning 3 limited attacks on the 26th of October, the 30th of October, and the 6th of November, which would ultimately help them capture Passchendaele. The first attack on the 26th was a massive success. The second attack revolved around capturing smaller areas so that they could launch a full-scale attack with more soldiers for their third attack. In the first few days of November, the weather was vastly improving, so the decision was made by the Canadians to launch their third attack on November the 6th. It took just 3 hours of fighting for the Canadian troops to capture Passchendaele, and days after the battle was over, all the devastating news of how much loss of life had been caused by this. A German General Staff publication revealed that averagely 14,000 German soldiers had been killed every week during the 3 months of the fighting. So we're talking about 2,000 German soldiers every day were killed. They were also able to recover aerial photos of pictures of the village before the battle and after the battle, and the difference is haunting. Now, there's 2 things I need to mention at the end here. One of those things is a little story or a backstory to one of the soldiers who fought on Passchendaele. His name was Harry Patch. He was the final survivor of the First World War, living all the way until he was 111 years old, dying in 2009. In 2007, on the 90th anniversary of the Battle of Passchendaele, he revisited the field of where the battles had taken place, and he actually had a few words to say about it.
War is a calculated and a condoned slaughter of human beings.
I included that bit because I think it's worth listening to from people who've been to hell and back and see what they've had to say about it. That's just what I thought. Finally, I want to talk about a film adaptation that was revolved around the Battle of Passchendaele. It's called Passchendaele, and it was made in 2008. I'm not going to say much more about it, but there is a 10-minute scene in the film that I encourage you to watch. It is basically a battle scene, and it basically shows off how horrible and chaotic and hell those days of fighting were. And if you have a weak stomach, obviously do not watch, but I do encourage people to watch it because I think it's important when films do these kind of things where they show how bad war is. I think it does send us a real message as to how this all played out. So I'm going to leave a link in the description to the video, and also having watched it, I've noticed actually that DICE might have actually taken inspiration from this film, where I'm going to show a tiny clip of the film, where you see here a soldier gets a bayonet through his hand. He gets all pissed off and basically starts beating the shit out of the guy. Now that's the scene in Passchendaele. Now there's a similar scene at the very beginning of the Battlefield 1 single player, where you see a very similar situation. The bayonet goes through the hand, and then the guy turns around and just basically beats the shit out of him. I just thought I'd leave that bit in as well because I thought it was kind of interesting. I've only just noticed it actually having watched the film again. So I guess it seems that DICE might have actually seen this film during their development of Battlefield 1. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy. This is a bit different than what I usually would do. If you want more of these, then be sure to leave comments down below on what battle we should study next, because I think it's important that there was hundreds of battles that could possibly be the background for DICE's next DLC for Battlefield 1 if they are doing this kind of thing for each DLC. If so, let me know what battle you think is really interesting to find out about. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, leave comments, and I'll see you all soon. Take care of yourselves.